Many thanks to DayZ Podcast, Pandemonium, Lion Lost, Felix Rection Vanilla servers, Atlas, Mutated Jurassic Outbreak servers, one original DayZ servers, Dust Vanilla servers, Sheriff Lion, and Apocalypse Now server for making this video possible. DayZ 1.21 has increased how far away lights can be seen and made drying clothes 13 times slower this update. So in this video we're going to be checking out how light distances have actually been increased and not decreased, the new methods that we have to dry clothes now, and the best way to keep ourselves dry with all these changes. In the previous patch, light could be seen to the maximum viewing distance of 1100 meters. Now around 150 meters, any light generated would switch to an obviously different long distance lighting system that we discovered in 1.19, making the faintest of light sources appear to be brighter at distance. This made some light sources appear brighter the further you are away from them, which doesn't make a lot of sense, and made most light sources appear invisible while they were transitioning from the short range distance to the long range lighting system. Now in 1.21 we have confirmation that the devs were not happy with the way this worked and have greatly improved the visual transition of light from this 150 meter mark onwards, making it much smoother for all light sources but the flare gun, which still does have some issues. So all light sources in DayZ have a very good transition, but the flare gun does have some issues still, and if you didn't know, it can be heard up to 3,000 meters away now too. This updated long distance light system now makes all light sources appear dimmer at a distance. Compared to last patch, they were very bright, now they're much dimmer, but all light sources in 1.21 can still be seen at 1,100 meters away, every single light source, and in addition it is now easier to see the light at a distance due to one particular change this patch. In 1.21 we can now see lights easier at a distance even though they are dimmer, because lights no longer switch off when you use an optic to view them. When using any zoom method in DayZ in previous patches, most light sources would not render the light at a distance when you're in that zoom view, but when you're in the normal view you can see the light source, making it much more difficult to see lights at very long distances, which obviously means we can now see light easier because we can scout using optics to see the light at a distance. The final change to light distances is how fireworks can be seen at the maximum render distance too, with their sound going far beyond what it was before, travelling several thousand meters in all directions, but I'll cover that in another video. For now, to summarise, light is dimmer but can be seen easier due to us being able to zoom in to see all of the light sources in DayZ. All lights can be seen at the maximum viewing distance still, so it's 1100 meters still, with the duration of the lights not changing, and how well lights illuminate areas not changing either. When 1.21 stable was released on all platforms, all items inside any piece of clothing became wet, so even items inside dry bags will become wet when it starts to rain. This has since been reverted to only allow items inside clothing to get wet if that piece of clothing itself is soaked or drenched, so items that cannot become soaked or drenched, like hunting gear, the dry bag and the raincoat, once again protect items from taking on water. However, when near a heat source now, items inside all pieces of clothing become dry from the heat of that fire, so you can have an item inside of an item that will become dry, so we can finally dry all of our items inside clothing at the same time without having to drag and drop them to the floor individually to dry them. The drawback to this though is that it now takes 13 times longer to dry clothes next to a fireplace. In the last patch, dropping an item within 2 meters of a fireplace would dry in 45 seconds from drenched. Now it would take 10 minutes. It used to take 2.5 minutes if you were stood next to the fire with wet clothes on your character. Now it is 15 minutes, so dropping the wet clothes by the fireplace is still the best practice in this patch. The dry times for all heat sources in DayZ has been at least doubled in this patch, so dropping clothing near any of these heat sources used to take this long, and now in 1.21 it takes this long instead. This shows us that once again, fire brooms and torches are the best method to dry clothes on the floor in DayZ, and also shows us that you can dry clothing inside of vehicle inventories before. This wasn't possible in the last patch, with whether or not the vehicle is switched on making no differences. In fact, air drying clothes on the floor in the sun takes the same time as it does inside vehicle inventories, so you could say that vehicles don't speed up clothing dry times at all, and nor does the generator either, even though all of these have heat source bubbles that you can see here in red and yellow. While on a player, clothes dry slower in nearly all cases, again showing that you need to take your clothes off to help significantly with the drying process, but sprinting will make clothes dry slightly faster when compared to standing idle. The only case where clothes dry faster on a player is when a player is inside of a vehicle. With clothes drying faster, the warmer the engine of the vehicle is, which just goes to show how insanely detailed DayZ is sometimes. So inside the vehicle inventory, on or off, it's 1 hour to dry a 100% drenched piece of clothing, but while driving or simply revving the engine in neutral to warm up the engine, it's 15 to 20 minutes depending on your altitude and how cloudy the server is. This means this heat area shown here in yellow and red doesn't affect items inside vehicle inventories when it comes to drying clothes, but it does warm up players that are inside the car and dry their clothes at the same time, even giving them the heat buffer stat if the server and the engine is warm enough. Using all of this data, the best method to dry clothes is placing them directly over a fire broom or a torch in this red circle area here. Like in the last patch, it just takes 10 times longer in this patch, taking 2 minutes and 30 seconds to fully dry a very absorbent piece of clothing instead of just 22 seconds like in last patch. But if you want to dry your clothes on the move, leave them equipped and go for a drive for around 20 minutes. I've created several other videos on how absorption and heat insulation works in DayZ if you want to learn more about these mechanics. And finally for this video, I'm doing a giveaway on Twitter, giving away free copies of DayZ on PC. All you need to do to enter is follow me on Twitter and comment on the giveaway tweet that I've linked below in the description. I'll announce the free winners next week. Thank you very much for watching and have a good day.